Have you ever heard a story so strange it makes you stop and think, wait, what just happened? Imagine a man in his 40s raising his voice at staff over one small detail, a stuffed toy not sitting in the exact spot he expected. Not a broken item, not a missed appointment, just a toy placed slightly wrong. That tiny moment says a lot about the tension behind palace walls. Keep that picture in your mind because it helps explain why so many headlines and public reactions followed later. This story isn't only about one outburst, it's about the pressure that can build inside one of the most famous residences in the world. Picture living somewhere filled with luxury, historic halls, and strict routines. Everything looks perfect from the outside, but inside, the atmosphere can feel intense.
I do think there's a huge scandal here. It's only going to get bigger. It's not just about financial and sexual misdemeanors. It's, I think, a national security scandal, and we're getting hints of that already.
And this, I think, is what is totally frustrating members of the royal family. He has always had a sense of entitlement. He's always been convinced by his royalness.
Staff move carefully, knowing even small details matter. One simple mistake, like a misplaced decoration or toy, might bring a sharp reaction.
This is the Duke of York. This is the royal family, willingly going onto TV and lying to the world about his relationship. And there was no compulsion for him to do it. We are really approaching, in my view, that along with Prince Harry and all the rest of it, a major constitutional crisis.
Paul Page understands that environment better than most. He wasn't commenting from the sidelines. He worked right there inside it.
Prince Andrew would fly off the handle if we've not opened the gate for him in time, or if we've stopped one of his guests because we've not got the right ID or we haven't been given any information of who they are. It would be verbally abusive. Shout, swear, yeah, just really rude individual.
From 1998 to 2004, he served as an armed protection officer with the Royalty Protection Command, spending 6 years inside Buckingham Palace protecting senior members of the royal family.
She says she met you in 2001. She dined with you. She danced with you. You bought her drinks. You were in Tramp nightclub in London. And she went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Didn't happen.
During that time, Page says one figure stood out to him because of a very demanding personality. According to his account, the atmosphere around that household could feel extremely strict, with staff expected to follow instructions closely and never question authority.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady, none whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
He describes moments that revealed how much control and precision were expected in daily life. Even the smallest details mattered. And while the public often sees grand ceremonies, elegant outfits, and perfect smiles, Page's experiences offer a rare glimpse into the intense pressure that can exist behind those famous palace doors.
A young lady turned up, probably about 22, 23 years old, said she was here to see Prince Andrew. He just came in about half hour previous, so we knew he was in, but the footman wasn't answering his phone. There was no way of us contacting anyone up there, so we just politely said to the lady, "We're really sorry, we can't let you in at the moment because we can't confirm you're expected." So she said, "Oh, shall I ring him on my mobile?" So we said, "Yeah, fine." So she rang Prince Andrew on her mobile and we could hear him clearly. He said, put an officer on the phone. So my colleague took the phone and he said, "Listen to me, you fat lardy ass. Let my guest in immediately, I'm going to come down there."
Now here's where the story takes a surprising turn, because the next detail sounds almost unbelievable. According to former protection officer Paul Page, life inside the palace sometimes included extremely specific routines, not just schedules or security rules, but even how certain personal items were arranged. In one example he shared has left many people raising their eyebrows.
Everyone heard it. The lady went red, apologised, and we just let her in. So after that, obviously, those sort of issues we had with him, we would just let women in. Didn't ask questions because we just did not want the...
Page recalled that inside Prince Andrew's bedroom were dozens of soft toys placed neatly across the bed, not just randomly sitting there either. Each one reportedly had a very specific spot.
I mean, complaints were made about him. You know, he was a rude, obnoxious, horrible individual, but no one was going to take a complaint to the royal household because he's the Queen's favourite.
To make sure everything stayed in order, staff were said to follow a laminated chart that showed exactly where every toy should go. Picture that for a moment. a plastic-covered diagram showing the precise position for each teddy bear on the bed. Every detail mattered: the direction, the spacing, the exact place it belonged.
And my publishers got letters, legal letters, warning them that they were being watched, what they put in the book. I was told that my social media would be monitored and that their attempts were made basically to intimidate me.
According to Page's recollection, the chart was used by staff whenever the room was cleaned or the bed was prepared. If something ended up in the wrong spot, it could lead to a very tense moment in the room.
What's your take on everything with the Prince Andrew interview?
Well, do you know what? I didn't know him that well. Andrew wasn't in my satellite, and I've never really known him, and that's the honest truth. I feel sorry for the victims.
It's one of those details that people still talk about today because it reveals how carefully controlled some routines inside royal residences could be. From the outside, the palace often looks calm and glamorous, but stories like this hint at a much more intense day-to-day environment behind those famous doors.
You faced an unprecedented wall of resistance on the part of the Yorks in your pursuit of the truth, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I mean, I approached them originally to see if they would cooperate, not because it was not going to be authorised, but because I felt it was important that they should be allowed to help shape the narrative.
So you approached Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson?
Yes.
On this particular occasion, went into Prince Andrew's bedroom and his apartments, and on his bed was 72 teddy bears on his bed.
Those laminated charts in perfectly arranged teddy bears might sound like a small detail, but many people believe it revealed something much bigger. According to Paul Page, moments like that showed how carefully controlled the environment inside the palace could be. It wasn't only about keeping things tidy, every little detail had to be exactly right. For staff, that meant being extremely careful with everything they did, because even small changes could create a tense situation. Page shared the story to show how strict routines and expectations shaped daily life behind the palace walls. The famous teddy bear chart became one of the most talked about examples, not because of the toys themselves, but because of what it suggested about the pressure and precision expected inside that world. Then, in November 2019, the conversation around Prince Andrew suddenly exploded onto television screens everywhere. During a BBC Newsnight interview with journalist Emily Maitlis, Prince Andrew attempted to respond to major public questions surrounding his past. One particular moment quickly caught everyone's attention. While explaining his side of events, Andrew stated that he was unable to sweat due to a medical condition he believed was connected to an adrenaline experience during the Falklands conflict. That comment instantly became one of the most discussed parts of the interview. Viewers around the world reacted with surprise, and clips from the broadcast spread rapidly online. Among those watching was former protection officer Paul Page. Having spent years working inside Buckingham Palace, he immediately reacted to the claim, saying it didn't match what he personally remembered seeing during his time there. What happened after that interview surprised a lot of people because the reaction inside royal circles was reportedly just as shocked as the reaction from the public. Former protection officer Paul Page later shared that when Prince Andrew made the statement about not being able to sweat, several people who had worked around the palace were surprised to hear it. According to Page, some former staff remembered things differently during their time working there.
Well, it took me 4 years of research, and I approached about 3,000 people, about 300 talked to me. And it took a lot of time to get a lot of these people to go on the record, but I think a lot of them were pretty appalled by the way that Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson had operated, had got away with it, had been protected by the palace. And I suppose I then got these senior diplomats and naval officers to talk, which was great.
But the moment quickly became one of the most talked about parts of the entire interview. What started as a serious attempt to explain events suddenly turned into a clip that spread everywhere online. Viewers replayed it, discussed it, and debated what it meant. What made the situation even more interesting was the silence that followed. The comments stayed in the public conversation for a long time, yet very few insiders spoke publicly about it right away. That quiet response left many people wondering why more first-hand perspectives weren't shared earlier.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at. It was almost impossible for me to sweat.
Paul Page had been discussing his experiences for years, describing what he believed daily life around the palace could be like. However, it took time before his perspective received wider attention from major broadcasters.
At the moment, again, it's his word, and that's all he's got. But there are no witnesses to confirm that, so that is just what he is saying.
Eventually, international media outlets began giving him opportunities to speak about his time working in royal protection. Interviews outside the UK helped bring his story to a much wider audience.
I think the worry is that there are more damaging revelations to come, which there are. I have a lot of material which I'm putting into an updated paperback in the summer. I know that there are much more to come out from the Epstein revelations. We're beginning to see them today. And I think we will now get more victims coming forward, and I think more people coming forward with stories. And I think this thing will begin to unfurl. It's going to be really bad.
By then, that original television interview had already become one of the most discussed royal media moments in recent history, showing how a single broadcast can spark conversations that last for years.
I got myself into a lot of trouble when I was a Royal Protection Officer. I basically was dealing in shares. I became a millionaire while I was a Royal Protection Officer in my own right before I got in trouble. And I basically started investing police officers' money as well.
But here's where the story takes another unexpected turn, because the man sharing these stories had a past that many critics immediately pointed to.
And it came to a point where I was just hemorrhaging money. It started off well, we were making money, and I was dealing with millions of pounds, and the stress got to me, and I started.
Over the years, Paul Page often said he felt ignored by major institutions in parts of the media, despite continuing to speak about his experiences working inside royal protection. Many people dismissed his claims quickly.
Losing money. So I turned to fraud. I went to court, I was held to account for my actions, and I spent 6 years in prison. Back in 2009, wasn't really relevant.
Part of the reason was his personal history. In 2009, Page was convicted in connection with a large property fraud case. He later served his sentence and acknowledged the mistake publicly. From that point on, whenever his name appeared in discussions, critics often focused on that chapter of his life instead of the details of what he was saying.
I suffered at the hands of Prince Andrew. Young girls suffered at the hands of Prince Andrew, maids, other police officers and members of staff, but none of this has ever been looked at.
Because of that, debates around his story became less about the claims themselves and more about whether he should be considered a reliable voice.
Because people were too frightened. And also it's important for the public around the world to understand, just because you've got a title, and as I said previously, it does not mean that you are a good person.
Supporters argued that someone's past doesn't automatically erase what they may have witnessed during their career. What kept the conversation alive, however, was the level of detail Page provided about his time working inside royal security. His stories, like the carefully arranged teddy bears and strict routines, continued to circulate online and in media discussions for years. Then, something interesting happened. Other commentators, historians, and writers who study the royal family began discussing similar themes about the intense pressure and strict expectations that can exist within royal institutions. When more established voices entered the conversation, the discussion around Page's claims started gaining new attention.
I think that's why nothing really severe did happen to him when the Queen was still alive. Now I think brother to brother, the King has had to say, no more, Andrew, you are not doing this to our family.
Suddenly, the debate shifted. Instead of asking who was speaking, more people began asking a different question. Why these behind-the-scenes stories had taken so long to reach the wider public. Just when the story couldn't get any more interesting, another voice entered the conversation, and this one came from the academic world. Historian and biographer Dr. Andrew Lowney stirred major discussion when he released his book, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. Unlike quick tabloid stories, the book aimed to take a deep look at the lives of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, exploring their public careers, financial challenges, and the powerful circles surrounding them.
I spent 5 years trying to get access to this sort of information, and I think committees in the House of Commons should be looking at a proper investigation into Andrew's time as a trade envoy, because he was helped and abetted by a whole series of people. I would like a lot of people who wouldn't talk to me for my book.
The book also examined several well-known controversies connected to the royal family over the years.
He just hoped he could silence everything, but of course you can't, because he is guilty on so many levels. And that is the great problem for the royal family. He is a permanent time bomb.
Using documents, interviews, and years of research, Lowney attempted to build a detailed timeline of events that shaped public opinion about the couple. When the book was released in the UK, it immediately drew huge attention. Readers and critics described it as deeply researched, noting the large number of interviews and public records used during the investigation. The strong reception quickly attracted international interest.
To today's situation with Prince Andrew. Over the years, what I said has now become relevant, and so the press started using bits and pieces from what I'd said. So I thought, at the end of the day, it's what I said. I've got to stand by what I said because it's 100% true. So I'm on no revenge mission. I just feel that Prince Andrew has got a case to answer on all levels, including bullying. And
soon, a major opportunity appeared. The U.S. publishing rights were reportedly purchased by a large publishing company in a deal said to be worth around $250,000. At first, everything seemed on track for a big American release. Editors reportedly said the research was solid and the project simply needed some structural adjustments before publication. But then, in a surprising twist, the publishing agreement was suddenly canceled. The project was halted before reaching U.S. shelves, leaving many observers wondering what exactly had changed behind the scenes. But the story didn't end when the book deal was canceled. In fact, that's when things became even more dramatic. Dr. Andrew Lowney decided to challenge the decision legally. The historian filed a lawsuit against the publisher, arguing that ending the agreement caused major financial and professional damage. For an author who had spent years researching the project, the situation wasn't just about money, it was also about losing a huge opportunity to reach readers in the American market. What made the situation stand out was the timeline. The book had already received strong attention in the UK, with many readers praising the depth of research and the large number of sources used in the investigation. Everything initially appeared positive for an international release. Then, according to reports, the publishing deal was suddenly canceled shortly before the planned release in the United States. The change raised plenty of questions within publishing and media circles.
That when he decided to do the interview with Newsnight, he clearly rehearsed how he was going to explain the photograph in the park and everything, and went into that interview with a clear determination to lie.
Dr. Lowney has also spoken about challenges he faced during the research process. In interviews, he explained that gaining access to certain historical records connected to royal topics could be difficult, with some archives unavailable or restricted. He also said that a few potential sources chose not to participate in interviews while the book was being written.
Not only clearly about his relationship with Epstein, but also his relationship with Virginia Giuffre and the rest of the things. And what is remarkable is looking at his face as he lies. It is the face of a professional con man, a professional liar.
For historians and investigative writers, situations like this can make research much more complicated. And in this case, the unexpected cancellation of the US release only added another layer of mystery to an already widely discussed project. And just when it seemed like the story couldn't get more complicated, another layer appeared.
Yes, he may have denied it to the Queen, but they certainly knew in the palace, and they monitor everything that goes on. And so for 14, 15 years, there has been a conspiracy of silence, and there's been a conspiracy by many at various levels not to tell the truth, Ireland.
Dr. Andrew Lowney has suggested that researching royal topics can sometimes be challenging for historians. In interviews, he mentioned that certain archives were difficult to access and that some potential sources chose not to participate in discussions about the book. Situations like this aren't unusual in historical research, but in this case, they added even more curiosity around the project. Lowney also pointed out that media organizations sometimes rely on access to royal events and interviews.
Because of that, coverage decisions can occasionally become complicated when sensitive topics are involved. Stories connected to high-profile figures often go through careful editorial review before reaching the public. While none of these factors offer a clear explanation on their own, the combination of limited access, quiet sources, and a canceled publishing deal created plenty of debate within media and publishing circles. Then, another well-known author entered the conversation. Investigative writer Tom Bower has built a reputation for examining powerful public figures in his books. Over the years, he has written about celebrities, business leaders, and members of the royal family, often drawing attention for his detailed research in direct writing style. Bower has also commented on Prince Andrew's widely discussed television interview, describing it as a very controversial media moment. His willingness to speak openly about the topic added yet another influential voice to the ongoing discussion. When authors, historians, and journalists all begin examining the same story, it often keeps public interest alive, and this situation is no exception. Then came the moment that really set the internet on fire. Investigative author Tom Bower warned in interviews that future documents and memoirs connected to past royal controversies could create serious challenges for the monarchy's public image. Coming from a veteran writer known for examining powerful figures, the comment quickly grabbed attention. But surprisingly, it wasn't that warning that went viral. What truly exploded online was a single sentence Bower said during a discussion about his work. He reportedly stated, "This is the chapter the palace hoped I would never write." That one line spread across social media almost instantly. Royal watchers, podcast hosts, and online commentators began analyzing what he might have meant. People started wondering whether there were details that hadn't yet been fully explored in public discussions. Some observers speculated that certain sections of research might not always make it into the final version of a book. Others suggested the comment could simply reflect how sensitive royal topics often are for authors and publishers. Whatever the exact meaning, the phrase created a huge wave of curiosity. The idea that there could be untold parts of the story sparked debates across the internet. And when you look at the bigger picture, it becomes even more interesting. A former royal protection officer, a professional historian, and an investigative biographer, three very different voices, all discussing the same chapter of royal history from their own perspectives. That overlap is exactly what keeps the public conversation going. And when you step back and look at the bigger picture, something interesting starts to appear. Three very different individuals, Paul Page, Andrew Lowney, and Tom Bower, have all shared perspectives about the same chapter of royal history. What makes it fascinating is that each of them approached the topic from completely different backgrounds. Paul Page spoke from the viewpoint of someone who worked inside royal protection, describing the atmosphere and routines he witnessed while serving at the palace. Andrew Lowney approached the story as a historian. Through research, documents, and interviews, he explored how royal institutions operate and how complex their public image can be. Then there's Tom Bower, an investigative biographer known for connecting pieces of information across media, politics, and celebrity culture. His books often examine how influence and reputation shape public narratives.
Individually, each perspective tells only part of the story, but when people compare them side by side, they notice similar themes about power, public image, and how major institutions handle scrutiny. And just when it seemed like the discussion couldn't grow any bigger, another well-known royal insider entered the conversation. Paul Burrell, who served as Princess Diana's butler for years, also experienced life inside the royal household. Living within that environment gave him a unique view of how royal operations work behind the scenes. Over time, Burrell has spoken publicly about palace life, explaining how carefully managed communication and public appearances can be within the royal system. And according to another royal insider, this pattern may go much deeper than people realize. Paul Burrell, who served for years as Princess Diana's butler, has often spoken about how the royal household works behind the scenes. From his experience inside the palace, he explained that the institution's main priority has always been protecting the monarchy itself. In interviews and public talks, Burrell described what he sees as a strong culture of loyalty within the royal system. When difficult situations appear, the focus often shifts toward maintaining stability and protecting the public image of the institution. He has suggested that managing public perception is a major part of how the royal household operates. In his view, situations that could create controversy are often handled quietly through internal processes rather than public debates. Burrell also shared memories of conversations he had with Princess Diana during his time working with her. According to him, Diana sometimes spoke about feeling overwhelmed by the intense pressure that comes with life inside the royal structure. It's important to note that Burrell did not work directly for Prince Andrew, and he wasn't involved in the events discussed by other commentators. However, his perspective is still interesting because it describes the broader systems surrounding the royal family. When people compare the accounts of Page, Lowney, Bower, and Burrell, they notice a recurring theme: how powerful institutions carefully manage reputation, communication, and public attention. Whether viewed as personal experiences, historical research, or investigative commentary, these perspectives continue to fuel public curiosity about what life is really like behind palace doors. Paul Burrell once made a comment that still echoes today. He said the royal household had a habit of quietly handling problems behind the scenes until, in his words, the carpet couldn't hold it anymore.
Looking back now, that statement has taken on new meaning for many royal watchers. Burrell often explained that protecting the monarchy's reputation has always been a top priority within the institution. Over time, he suggested that this approach created a system focused heavily on stability and public image, especially during difficult moments. For many observers, the controversies surrounding Prince Andrew became one of the biggest tests of that system in recent years. Even as public debate intensified, one person remained publicly supportive for a long time: Queen Elizabeth II. Many royal biographers have written about the close bond between the Queen and Prince Andrew, often describing him as one of her most trusted children. Eventually, as public pressure grew, the Queen made the decision to remove Andrew from official royal duties and military roles. It was a major step that signaled the institution was responding to the situation. At the same time, Prince Andrew continued living privately at Royal Lodge and remained connected to the royal family. From the outside, it looked like the monarchy was trying to balance two priorities: responding to public concern while maintaining internal family ties. Meanwhile, historians and researchers studying the royal family continued facing challenges accessing certain records and documents. For many people following the story, it raised a bigger question: how large institutions protect their image while navigating moments of intense public scrutiny. For years, discussions about Prince Andrew were often handled very carefully in the media. Royal coverage has always involved a delicate balance, and journalists have long known that reporting on the monarchy can come with certain sensitivities. Many editors and broadcasters historically maintained close relationships with royal press offices, which sometimes influenced how stories were approached or discussed publicly. Because of that dynamic, coverage around controversial topics could move slowly or cautiously. Queen Elizabeth II was also widely known for her strong loyalty to family. Throughout her reign, she maintained a reputation for standing by those closest to her, even during difficult moments. Royal historians frequently noted the particularly close bond she shared with Prince Andrew. However, the situation changed significantly after the Queen's passing. With King Charles III now leading the monarchy, the tone surrounding the issue began to shift. Public statements emphasized that legal matters should follow their proper course, signaling a more formal distance between Prince Andrew and official royal responsibilities.
Reports also suggested that other senior members of the royal family wanted to ensure the monarchy remained focused on its future and public role. As time passed, journalists, researchers, and commentators began examining the story again with renewed attention. Conversations that once stayed mostly behind closed doors started appearing more openly in media discussions. But many observers say the bigger story isn't just about one person. Instead, it's about how long-standing institutions manage difficult situations, protect their reputation, and adapt when public expectations begin to change. And according to many royal commentators, the situation surrounding Prince Andrew eventually reached a turning point that few people expected. For years, Queen Elizabeth II was known for standing firmly by her family. Her loyalty was one of the defining traits of her reign, and many observers believe that support played a role in how situations involving Prince Andrew were handled inside the royal circle. But after the Queen's passing, the environment around the monarchy began to change. With King Charles III now leading the institution and Prince William representing its future, the royal family faced growing pressure to focus on transparency, responsibility, and public trust. For the first time in decades, discussions about Prince Andrew's role and position within the royal family became much more open in public conversations. By early 2026, media attention around the situation had reached an intense level. Reports about legal reviews, document requests, and official inquiries connected to royal affairs dominated headlines across the world. Authorities were said to be examining digital devices, records, and other materials connected to locations associated with Prince Andrew's private life. Agencies responsible for serious investigations became involved, showing how significant the situation had become. For many observers, the moment represented something larger than one individual. It reflected years of debate about accountability, influence, and how powerful institutions respond when public pressure grows. And as the story continued unfolding, several familiar names resurfaced in the conversation. Paul Page, Andrew Lowney, Tom Bower, and Paul Burrell, people who had spoken about different aspects of the royal system long before the issue became global news. For years, several voices tried to raise questions about the royal system surrounding Prince Andrew, but many of them struggled to be taken seriously at the time. Paul Page, the former royal protection officer, often found his claims dismissed by critics who questioned his credibility. Historian Andrew Lowney faced major obstacles when his research and book project encountered publishing setbacks. Investigative author Tom Bower, known for exploring controversial topics, was frequently described by critics as too provocative in his approach. And Paul Burrell, Princess Diana's former butler, was sometimes labeled a gossip despite his long service inside the royal household. But as time passed, something interesting began to happen. The same figures who were once brushed aside started appearing again in media discussions. Journalists revisited their interviews, researchers examined their claims, and commentators began comparing their perspectives with newer developments surrounding the royal family. For many observers, the situation highlighted how long complex stories can take to fully unfold. Issues that once seemed like isolated comments or disagreements slowly became part of a much larger public conversation about the monarchy, accountability, and how powerful institutions respond to scrutiny. Today, investigations, legal reviews, and ongoing media coverage continue to examine events connected to Prince Andrew's public life. What information may emerge from documents, digital records, or future reports remains uncertain. But one thing is clear, the conversation around this chapter of royal history is far from over, and the world is watching closely as it continues to develop. For years, several people tried to raise questions about the system surrounding Prince Andrew, but their voices were often dismissed. Interviews were overlooked, their claims debated, and their credibility questioned. Many critics assumed their stories were exaggerated or incomplete. But as time passed, some of the topics they discussed slowly returned to the public conversation. What once sounded like isolated warnings began to look more like early observations about how powerful institutions operate under pressure.
And that's what makes this moment so significant, because the discussion today isn't only about one royal figure or one controversy. It's about how large institutions handle scrutiny, public trust, and accountability when difficult questions appear. Now, investigators, journalists, and historians are all looking more closely at the same chapter of royal history. New reports, documents, and ongoing reviews could shape how this story is understood in the future. The coming months may reveal even more details, and people around the world are watching closely to see how everything unfolds. Because once a conversation like this begins, it rarely stops. Each new development adds another piece to the puzzle. If you followed this story from the beginning, you already know how quickly things can change. So if you want more deep dives like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about this story?